doing, Joe?
I'm doing well. So before we get started, I'll introduce the two of us. I'm Joe Fagan. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships for beYogi. And here at beYogi, we offer membership programs for yoga instructors, yoga therapists, and other health and wellness disciplines. Our membership packages provide liability insurance, business and marketing tools, and resources, as well as member benefits and industry discounts for yoga professionals. Our programs provide access to low-cost health insurance, dental, vision, telemedicine, as well as, and since we're seeing more and more yoga instructors move their business online, I want to mention that our program covers not only face-to-face classes, but live online classes and even pre-recorded videos. And keep in mind, we're doing these webinars the first and third Wednesday of every month, of course, with the exception of today, since today's Thursday. But please keep joining and please keep sharing these events with your community. If there's any topics of interest to you, let us know. We do try to build these programs around the wants and needs of the beYogi community. And this video will be posted on our blog on beyogi.com. And of course, you can access it via our Facebook page as well. And on there, on beyogi.com, you can also find a schedule of the upcoming events. Now I'd like to introduce you to our honored guest, Ann Swanson. Ann is, as I mentioned, a certified yoga therapist and the author of Science of Yoga, which, by the way, is being translated into over 15 languages, which is pretty cool. She specializes in teaching accessible yoga and Tai Chi for arthritis and chronic pain, and it's included in her telehealth practice. And by the way, Ann was doing Zoom sessions for years before it became the thing to do recently due to lockdown because of this pandemic. With a Master's of Science in Yoga Therapy and roots studying yoga in India and Qigong in China, Ann uniquely applies cutting-edge research to mind-body practices while striving to maintain the heart of the traditions. She loves speaking and writing about how yoga practices can transform health and well-being based on science. And one last thing, we'll be answering some questions, potentially answering some questions as we go along, but we'll save 10 to 15 minutes at the end for additional Q&A. So please, as we're moving along, submit any questions that you have in the Q&A or the chat. Anything we can't answer today, we'll do our best to get answered and send to everyone as a post-webinar communication. And now I'll hand it over to Ann to kick things off. Welcome, Ann Swanson.
Hey, thanks, Joe. And I did want to say that I have beYogi insurance because I'm a yoga therapist, and they were one of the first to really accept yoga therapists on their insurance and partner with IAYT. So for yoga therapists out there, you get a discount for being an IAYT member. But also, as you mentioned, I'm a Tai Chi for health instructor, and I'm a licensed massage therapist. So I appreciate that it covers me for everything all in one. So yeah, welcome everybody. I am really glad to be here right now chatting with you. And I'm gonna share my screen so that you can see some pictures from Science of Yoga and some other pictures that I have for you. So this workshop here is on boosting your immunity. I'm gonna give you 6 tips and tell you why they work. These are 6 practical tips, but I'm starting off really, really broad and then going more and more specific as we move forward. And this is the book, Science of Yoga, which has been translated into 10, 11, 12 languages so far. I think it's gonna be 15 total. And you can order this at order.scienceof.yoga. So set up www and you can type in order.scienceof.yoga, or it's anywhere that books are sold, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, hopefully your local bookstore. And there will be some resources that I'm talking about through this presentation that I will give to you at AnnSwansonWellness.com/immunity, including some videos that are coming up that I'll be releasing really soon that take these into depth, into practices, including one on how to safely use the Neti Pot. So let me move forward to first acknowledgements, and I'd like to acknowledge the people that helped me come to where I am. There's so many I can't even name, but these are the ones that I acknowledged in Science of Yoga. So my teacher in India, Yogi Shivadas, as well as my teachers in China, my teachers in the US, Dr. Stephanie Munaz is the creator of the Yoga for Arthritis program, which is an evidence-informed program I teach. And she's a researcher, Marlisa Sullivan. There's so many amazing teachers that I've had, obviously my family, and then the DK team that I collaborated with for this book. Obviously, I did not do all of these illustrations, although I did study art originally. It really came into play as I was drawing on napkins to what images I wanted to represent the concepts I was discussing. Really, it was Aaron Lewis and Claire, his partner in work, partner in life, that sat down and put this together as the illustrator and designer. So you'll see some cool pictures from that, as well as Ruth, my main editor. So tip number one is super broad. I told you I'm starting off broad and then getting more and more narrow as I continue through. So the first one is to live a yogic lifestyle. And this is important to emphasize when we talk about yoga. It's not just the asanas. We're looking here at this image from the Q&A section of Science of Yoga in the back. It is showing the 8 limbs of yoga, and actually specifically the words that researchers use to often describe them. So for example, the niyamas are often called self-regulation, while yamas are called self-control. So just kind of an interesting way of how researchers are looking at yoga as a whole practice, not just the poses help your immunity. And a big part of a yogic lifestyle is, traditionally it would be called a sattvic lifestyle, but yoga was originally for people that were living a monastic life. And I think a lot of us are more householders. We have bills to pay, families. So we have to adapt what that yogic lifestyle looks like. We can use the principles to adapt though. And one of those principles is moderation. So living your life in moderation. In the Western world, we look at the healthy lifestyle as being moderation in the way you eat and the diet you have, as well as like choosing mindfully your diet. And that's also how we look at it in the yogic world. There's that diet component of moderating and being mindful about what you eat, as well as exercising, movement, which we have movement in yoga. We have asanas. As well as in the Western world, we also look at not drinking too much alcohol or minimizing that, not smoking, which I would say is part of that yogic lifestyle, moderation, and maintaining a healthy body overall. So the yogic lifestyle really does align with what what research has shown is a healthy lifestyle that we want to aim for. And overall, yoga helps us to build this new capacity called interoception. This is basically a combination of, we can look at it as 2 words, like there are 2 parts to the word. Intero, like inside of, inception, like perception. So this is your ability to listen to the signals from the inside of your body, to perceive what's going on, to know, when am I really hungry? What am I really craving? And then to know when you're full and to stop eating, right? As a yoga teacher, it's not in my scope of practice to give dietary advice, but just the act of being more mindful and feeling your own body, you may notice you make better lifestyle decisions and better food decisions, as well as being able to feel in your asana practice if you've gone too far, and be able to feel what you need to do to be safe, as well as feeling the subtle needs of our body. You know, oh, I've been sitting too long. I need to get up and walk around a little bit. That is interoception. You can feel that your digestive organs maybe need that little bit of movement. And so you get up and you actually deliver what your body is asking you to do. That's a big part of what yoga does for us, and allows us to be more mindful of what our body needs and then more likely to deliver it, leading to better lifestyle choices. Do we have any questions so far? I'll just pause for a moment, Joe, in case there's anything coming up that you think is really relevant.
I did see one from Karen Wexler that just mentioned, is that spelled correctly or is it missing the O? And I'm not exactly sure what she's referencing.
Interoception? Yogic lifestyle? I don't know. But I am been known to make spelling mistakes. That's possible. I'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah, there's another question. It's a more broad question that we can answer towards the end though as well from Ms. Kateria asking about some tips on flexibility. Which boy, Kateria, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think we could all use some tips on that, but we'll look at answering that later on.
Well, yeah, I'm going to talk about it broadly right now, which is move more. So this being part of the yogic lifestyle, but this is part of the yogic lifestyle that research shows that exercise and movement in general improves our mood, improves our sleep, which is so important for your immunity. There is a link between sleeping better and having better immunity, as well as managing our stress. So broadly speaking, moving more is going to help us be able to manage those stressors, have a stronger body, a stronger mind to handle them as they come, and lowers inflammation, which I'm going to talk about more very soon. Movement as well as meditation, a lot of these overlap, help us to lower inflammation. And just by exercising our physical body through asana, through a mindful walk in nature, through healthy movement, taking little yoga breaks through your day and not sitting too long, instead do a few stretches at your desk and be mindful as you do them. This healthy movement integrated into our life improves the functions of all our systems of our body. We break down our body into systems and they look really separate. And I'm even breaking down this presentation into separate parts that you can do. You can move, you can meditate, you can breathe in a different way, but really they are all intertwined. Our systems all affect each other. Our healthy lifestyle choices all affect each other. And ultimately, the idea of yoga is to move prana. Well, there's many ideas of yoga, but one of them is to move prana. And the idea of the movements we do in asana is to move prana, help it move more efficiently. So when I say prana, this vital energy, this life force energy that the yogis speak of, in order to prepare our bodies better for meditation, for relaxation, which you may guess is number 3. So when I look at the idea of moving prana and feeling this after I do an asana practice, feeling this sense of there has been this healthy movement within me. Maybe I feel this buzzing, this aliveness, right? You feel that kind of glow after a yoga class. Maybe that's prana. Maybe it's also a culmination of all the physiological effects that we can now measure, like the blood flow is increased from movement. Your lymphatic flow, the lymph through the lymph vessels, it increases its speed and circulation. As well as we are sending signals through our nervous system constantly. There's electricity going through these nerves, these wires through our body. Maybe we're feeling that movement, regardless of whether or not those all culminate to be prana or what is the definition exactly of prana. We know that all of these things are moving. Physiologically, there's a lot of movement that is encouraged within your body from doing asana. So more specifically, I can't tell you to do these 3 poses to improve your immunity. It's not quite that simple. And actually, if you search improve your immunity on Google, you're going to get like, you know, buy all these things, you know, boost your immunity with this supplement and this and that. And we don't have a lot of direct research, as well as in the yoga world, you'll get this particular sequence for immunity. And I can't tell you this pose is going to improve your immunity. However, I can tell you, based off of what we understand from anatomy and physiology, that by doing certain types of movements, you're helping encourage your lymph flow, as well as your blood flow, which I just mentioned, right? So let me explain a little bit further. We've got here in a picture on the left, we actually have somebody in a headstand or shoulder stand there. They're upside down. You can see their pelvis is upside down. And this is showing the lymphatic vessels in that area. And these are all through your entire body. We have these vessels, as well as if you zoom into those little nodules, those are the lymph nodes. And they are actually concentrated around the joint areas, you know, around your neck, the cervical spine, around your hips, and around your shoulders. And so when we move, we help to stimulate the movement and the flow of the lymph through those vessels, as well as the blood for our vessels. So that's going on. But when we move and we go upside down, like the inversions we practice in yoga, this more specifically helps because, let me go to the next picture. This is a picture of a blood vessel, a vein. But veins and lymphatic vessels are very, very similar in that they have these valves. It says closed valve blocks blood flow. So we got that valve right there. These are one-way valves. In arteries, they actually have muscles surrounding the artery. And let me actually see if I can easily do this. No, not super easily. So I think you can see my picture in the little corner too. But you've got the blood vessel, the artery, and when it can either constrict and get smaller, higher blood pressure, more force, or it can dilate, get better, bigger, lower blood pressure, less force. And this is constantly happening in our body. These are autonomic functions, automatic functions that's happening, affecting our blood pressure and that sort of thing. However, the veins and the lymphatic vessels themselves do not have smooth muscles surrounding them that can change the amount of force or pressure that's in that vessel. Instead, they only have this valve that prevents backflow. This picture is actually showing as if somebody were upside down. So you can see me in legs up the wall here, which is a really great pose, great inversion that's very relaxing. A very good modification of a shoulder stand, actually, a safe version. So the vessels are upside down to show what it would be like in my leg. If we flipped it, this is if you're standing or you're seated right now, probably. Imagine your legs and these blood vessels are in your legs. So what's happening is we want the blood to go back up toward the heart. So these valves are one way. They only allow it to go one way. If the blood tries to go back down, then the valve will close and prevent that backflow. By going upside down, now look, we flipped it. So gravity is now pushing the blood to open that valve. So by doing an inversion, and I often recommend a gentle inversion, like legs up the wall, you are encouraging that return of the blood to the heart, but the lymph vessels work in the same exact way. Now, inversions aren't the only way. Also, since they don't have smooth muscles actually built into the vessels, what we do have in our legs is muscles in general, right? We have our thigh muscles. And the rhythmic movement of muscles, like from walking, helps to pump the venous return of the blood or the lymph back up to the heart, helps to move it, increasing circulation. So taking a walk, as well as just asanas, movement. Sun salutations are really great for getting that flow, for warming up, increasing circulation of both blood and lymph. So I can't tell you these 5 poses are going to help with immunity, but I can tell you that a general movement practice, the engagement of the muscles around these vessels, helps the return of the fluid back to the heart, increases circulation. And when we can increase circulation in our lymphatic system, then it has more time, the lymph, which is basically filtration samples from the blood, has more time to go into these lymph nodes. See on the right-hand side here, the lymph node is basically this area where it can give white blood cells to fight the infection, viruses. It can filter through whatever debris and things that need to be released from your body. So we want to encourage that flow. As a massage therapist, we talk about this all the time, that you can do a specific lymphatic massage to help with that flow. Just massage in general has research to show that it supports lymphatic flow and lymphatic drainage. But movement also does that, as well as, like I said, going upside down. I want to open it up before I go to the next one, because that was a little bit anatomy based. If there were any questions that you think were relevant there, Joe.
And there are a couple of questions that are relevant here. And the first was from April Jackson, and she's must have read your book. She wrote, in your book, you state that 95% of our serotonin is in the gut. Does movement increase output of serotonin, and does that movement help increase immunity because of the serotonin output?
Well, increasing circulation and blood flow can only help with delivering hormones to the cells that they need. Specifically, I don't know if it's that direct of a connection. I don't think so. Like now you're going to be, if you squeeze your belly, you know, you're not going to be push more serotonin out. But overall, just increasing your circulation and your cardiovascular function to move things through you is going to help you be balanced overall. Now, I will tell you more of an effect is actually the overall lifestyle affecting your serotonin, I'd say, than the movement. So can you have a healthy lifestyle that supports fighting depression, right? So can you have a healthy lifestyle that has you laughing, has you smiling and finding social support? We know that when we're around other people, which is actually one of the main things we can do to help our immunity, and it's tough right now, is just to have social support. And that increases serotonin and that sense of connection. So I would say that those factors are a little bit more, but I like the way you're thinking.
Love that. And then again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing this name, but Kateria Torres, so Ms. Torres, please forgive me if I have mispronounced. She wrote, for how long should we do inversions so that happens?
Yeah, good question. It really depends on the person and their capacity for it. So, and also the inversion. With all of these things, it depends. You know, if you read in a book and it says it's always this amount of time, I think it's oversimplifying it because everybody's different. I mean, if you have high blood pressure, first of all, maybe you should reconsider going into a headstand if it's not regulated, for sure. But if you have high blood pressure, you are going to feel the effects really, really fast from going upside down. And it may be too much work for your heart to pump against gravity like that, and you may get winded from something like headstand. However, something more gentle, like I prefer legs up the wall, and more specifically, actually, let's see if I can stop my share pretty easily because I want to show you. More specifically, and is it highlighting me? Because it says that it's highlighting you right now. Okay. So more specifically, I tend to teach people legs up the wall, or you can do this as legs up the headboard of your bed. And I like to do it with, if you're in bed, put some pillows under your hips to enhance it even more. If you're on the floor, you can use a block under your hips. I find this to be a really safe way to do an inversion for a little bit longer period of time rather than a shoulder stick headstand, which few of us should actually do quite often. I think that there's a lot of people in the general public that those poses aren't appropriate for, but also you can't hold them very long. So either just normal legs up a wall or legs up a chair, or you can put the pillows or even a block under your hips. And think about this, by elevating your hips, you're further encouraging that return of the blood and lymph back to your heart, because we have another extra elevation here. So that's a really good modification of something that you could stay in for 10, 15 minutes and really get the effects. I'd say my answer to your question being, though, it depends on the person. If you ever feel any dizziness, any numbness, any tingling, like, you know, that kind of like pins and needles tingling from a pose, from an inversion, come down. If you ever feel well, as a teacher, I can see if somebody gets white in the face or red in the face, that's not good. So if you feel like a lightheadedness, you obviously want to come down immediately. So those are some of the red flags that you're looking for, as well as heart beating really fast. If you had high blood pressure, you might start to feel that happening. So all of those things combined, I would say it depends on the person, but a gentle inversion like that, I think it's great to stay 10, 15 minutes, do a meditation in it if it's gentle. Even if it's less, just putting your feet up slightly, you can stay there for like a yoga nidra, and that counts as an inversion. And then we have a variety of inversions, right? Downward dog's an inversion. So stay as long as you can until your wrist hurt.
That's great. Well, those are we are up to date on the questions. I do want to mention to everybody here, though, that our team has been posting links as we moved along. There's a link, if you look in the chat, there's a link not only to Ann's book, which we're obviously talking a lot about here today, but also some additional free resources that she's put on her site. So take a look in the chat and save those links.
Number 3, relax more. This is easier said than done. You can't just tell somebody to relax, and actually that's psychologically, that's like really bad. Just relax. We all know that makes you even more stressed. It's not that easy. However, yoga gives us tools that we can use to induce the relaxation response and to go more into the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest, digest, and rejuvenate part of our nervous system. And we're building the capacity through these practices we do in yoga to do it quicker and more efficiently, and for it to be the new normal of what you do when you notice there's a stressful response or a stressor around you, whether it be, oh my gosh, life is so stressful right now because my life is turned upside down because of a worldwide pandemic, or it's like I hear an ambulance and I'm noticing that really stresses me out to hear that sound, and I'm starting to get a little frazzled. Well, what I can do is one of these yoga techniques, like I could simply elongate my exhales. And that's what we have a picture of here showing I can use this picture to explain how the elongated exhales we do in yoga help to immediately go deeper into that relaxation response. When you elongate your exhales, there's these little vibrations in the back of your throat, or when we even little vibrations, and the brain is getting the information that you're safe, and the signals are being sent down the vagus nerve. That is depicted, and it's very faint here in this picture in light yellow. You can see this picture in the respiratory system section of the book, Science of Yoga. So that electricity going down the vagus nerve goes to the heart and says, you know what? Slow down. You're safe. Every single exhale, this is actually happening. With every exhale, whether you're oming or elongating it or just a normal breath, every single exhale, we have this subtle slowing of the heart, this subtle going into the parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest. With every inhale, it's the opposite. Yogis intuited that if they elongate the exhales, they did this by feeling it and experimenting on themselves, and they felt, oh wow, I actually feel more relaxed. I go into this deeper state of relaxation where all of my organs are functioning at their optimal level. So that's what they did. They said, you know what, let's double the length of the exhales, or just make them longer than the inhales. And by doing that, you are encouraging your system to stay in the relaxation response longer, to go into it. Conversely, if you want more energy, you can elongate the inhales, right? Because then you're focusing a little bit more on that part of your nervous system that is more about being alert and awake, right? But a lot of times we need this technique to relax. Let's actually try it together. So we are going to induce the relaxation response. Sit tall wherever you are, and start by noticing your natural breath. You may want to readjust your posture a little bit. And notice, without changing it if possible, what is your natural breath like right now? Is the inhale or exhale longer, or are they about the same? Now let's make those exhales longer, not to a forced level, just more trying to let as much of the air out as you comfortably can before the next inhale. Allow your abdomen to move with you, expanding the abdomen and chest with the inhales as you fill up, and releasing down and in as you slowly empty out. You can continue to do this as I speak. Sometimes we count the breath and do it double the inhale. Sometimes we just focus on elongating it in general. By doing this, you are inducing your relaxation response. You may already feel that your heart rate is lowering, your blood pressure is lowering. Really great thing to do when you're about to get your blood pressure tested. So practically speaking, some things we can do to relax more: meditate more, do more yoga nidra. So yoga nidra can be looked at as a deep relaxation practice or under the category of meditation. And it's where we're lying down and going through a process for a longer time of deep relaxation. Do more relaxing pranayama. So elongating your exhales. Also, chanting stimulates the vagus nerve, bringing you into this response, as well as simply just chanting Om, right? That elongated exhale from the chant, as well as the vibrations. Brahmari is bee breath. You typically put your fingers over your face, but right now it's not good to touch your face too much. So you can do it without touching your face. Let's actually just do one together. With the next exhale, we're going to make a humming sound. You can close your eyes and just make the humming sound as long as you can. Inhale deeply. Another one you can do is alternate nostril breathing. But I also said during respiratory pandemic, probably don't want to be touching your face too much. I've been joking that you could just use tongs and do your alternate nostril breathing. Anyways, I think it's also important that we focus on sleep during this time. Some key things I wanted to point out was that your immune system is complex and it's interrelated with all your systems, really, but it's very much interrelated with your brain and your nervous system. Increased distress, so that being like the harmful type of stress, leads to a compromised immunity. We know this. We also know that immunity naturally lowers as we age, and these self-care and lifestyle choices that I'm speaking of, that yoga teaches us, become even more important. We also know that poor immune function can lead to mental health issues like anxiety, depression, poor sleep, and vice versa. They go in the other direction too. It goes in both directions. Everything is interrelated. I'm going to remind you of a concept you probably learned in biology and anatomy and physiology called homeostasis. This is your body's dynamic process of maintaining balance or equilibrium. Your body in this graph is showing that you're constantly testing hormone levels, determining if it's low or high, and either adding more of that hormone or lessening the release of that hormone to find balance. Basically, this is a negative feedback loop, which is how your thermostat works. Constantly testing the air. Do I need to turn on a little bit of the cool air, warm air, turn it off? But this concept, you may not have learned in your biology or anatomy and physiology class. This is something we more talk about in integrative health, which yoga is underneath the category of integrative health. It's called allostasis. Allostasis is defined as the process by which your body responds to stressors in order to regain homeostasis. So I actually talk about this in Science of Yoga under the section on the endocrine system, which is that hormone balance I was just mentioning, but all of our systems really work in this web. If we look at all of our systems as constantly trying to maintain this balance, or if we're alive, it's maintaining a balance, then we can see that when we increase the load on the system, it's similar to this left-hand picture. It's like, oh, it can maintain balance. Yes, there's balance, but it's a lot of work to get there. And it almost looks like it's at a breaking point, right? And that breaking point may be a chronic disease. But if we can lessen the load on the system, it's easier to maintain the balance. Your body goes through less metabolic processes to maintain that balance. So typically, a yogic lifestyle would help you lessen the load, right? You'd have a greater load if you're living a sedentary lifestyle, smoking cigarettes, going out and drinking all the time. That's going to be an increased load, and a lesser load would be these healthier lifestyle choices, exercising more, breathing better, meditating. But we do have to remember that right now, we're during times of like global stress like this, the load is increased for everybody. So the load is by nature increased right now. It becomes even more important for us to do this self-care. One thing that happens when we have an increased load on our system is we have chronic inflammation. And we can see this by like measuring in the blood how much inflammatory markers are there, or cytokines. And yoga and meditation have been shown to reduce cytokines in your blood, showing that there's less overall inflammation. This is huge because this means your immune system can focus on the incoming invaders, the viruses, bacteria, whatever else, common cold that could get you sick. We call this a cytokine storm, when the immune system is just like overactive and causing this chronic inflammation. We want to get past that storm, and yoga and the lifestyle tools can help us with that. I would not be doing my my job as a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, a public health advocate without saying it's important during a time like this to mindfully follow whatever the current healthcare guidelines are. And right now, the current guideline is when you're around people or outside, wear a mask, wash your hands often. So let me just talk about how we can do this yogically and why this is important. So first of all, I wanted to say I've been noticing there's some extra benefits to wearing a mask recently, because during allergy and cold season, I have severe allergies. And it has been kind of nice when I'm wearing a mask and I'm like, oh, I can tell somebody just mowed their lawn, and that would normally put me in those severe allergies. So there's some other benefits to the mask wearing. But also we can bring mindfulness into washing our hands, and washing our hands can become a mindful activity. It can become a meditative activity. I actually focus on working with people with arthritis and chronic pain, and arthritis often happens in the hands. So what I'm about to show you is also helpful if you have hand pain. We are gonna follow the World Health Organization guidelines right now and just pretend to wash your hands right where you are. You're holding your phone, put it down for a moment. Imagine putting soap in your hands. You're not gonna actually do that. We're gonna do this in the air. And begin by doing circles. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to get practice this and feel the sensations on your fingertips as you do this. Do this with both hands. So we have a lot of sensory nerve receptors on our fingertips so that we can do really fine movements. You may be able to feel that right now. And then interlace your fingers and go up and down several times with the palm in and out. This one you create two fists and go side to side. Try this with me. Can you feel this at your fingertips? Can you feel the warmth and blood flow increasing as you do this? Be mindful of how it feels physically. And then we go to the thumb and we do circles around the thumb. And do the other thumb. Actually grab the thumb and do circles. And rubbing the hands. Imagine you have warm water on your hands. And I love this also if you have pain, just this sense of moving your hands over each other. Rub your hands together for a moment. Feel the heat, warmth. And I'd like you to place your hands somewhere on your body where you need some love, some heat, some warmth. maybe massage it a little bit as I continue to talk. So washing our hands can be this opportunity for mindfulness. My fifth tip, I told you, I'm getting more specific and more like practical, right? Number one was like basically live the yogic lifestyle, do your yoga. Now we're getting some specific things. One thing you can do is make sure you're breathing through your nose. Are you breathing through your nose right now? Check in with that. Notice. It can be hard when we're doing something like maybe starting to exercise, do a yoga asana practice, go on a brisk walk, we start to mouth breathe. Can you try to breathe through your nose more often? In India, they say the nose is for breathing and the mouth is for eating. Of course, there are some exceptions to this because if you have, if you're really, really stuffed up, you know, the mouth is there as a backup to breathe through. So we do have it as a backup, and your breathing is the number one most important thing. So if you have to, during those circumstances, you can, as well as if you have some nose issue, deviated septum, etc. There could be times where nose breathing is very difficult. So those are things you could talk to your healthcare provider about how you can fix them. But I'll give you some basic things that are under my scope of practice as a yoga therapist, yoga teacher. So what I want you to see is first on the picture on the right, these are pictures from the respiratory system section of Science of Yoga. And on this picture on the right, you can see if the air goes up through the nose, look at those, like it's all that pathway, that extra pathway that it has. It's kind of shiny the way it's drawn there. And the reason it's shiny is because it's mucousy. So first it goes through the nose where there's little hairs. And we've all heard, we know that the nose filters the breath, and that's one benefit. It catches immediately. Those hairs may catch pollution. They can catch viruses, bacteria, but they can catch it. The mucus also does the same, and that mucus is lining that entire nasal cavity. We have the nasal cavity with all of these, the conchi means shell. It's got these like labyrinth-like mazes for the air to go through. And it allows it to be filtered through that mucus even better. But also, it allows it to slow it down, humidify it, and prep it for the lungs, which the mouth doesn't do. Look at the path of the mouth. It's much quicker, goes right to the back of your throat, smaller. You know when you mouth breathe, like if you mouth breathe at night, your throat gets really, really dry. And you lose all those abilities to filter out the air and to warm it and prep it. When it's in our nasal cavity longer, we release a chemical, nitric oxide. And this has a relaxing effect. So not only that, but it's also more relaxing, more able to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, relaxation response when you breathe through your nose. And then by the time it gets to your lungs, it's slower. And the cells of your lungs can absorb more oxygen from the same amount of air when it comes in slower. We think, take a deep breath, and we do like a dramatic deep breath. That fast deep breath is actually not increasing the amount of oxygen. Your lungs can't really handle it when it's so fast. The low and slow breath is what we want to do. We want to allow movement in the abdomen and breathe slowly. Allow the breath to have time in the nasal cavity. Now, on the left-hand side, we have pictures of your sinuses. These are holes in your skull, a little smaller than your fist, about the size of a billiard ball. If you were to hold that up right around your forehead and nose, that's how much space you have in your skull. We can see this from the side view on the picture on the right. You can see on the forehead, the little holes there. That's the frontal sinus. You can see near the ear, there's a sinus or a hole there, the sphenoid sinus. So these holes in your skull are your sinuses, and they're helping also to slow down the air. And one thing that we do in a yoga practice, and many yoga teachers may be like, oh, just do a neti pot. Well, I think that one thing we don't do enough of is talk about how to do this safely. Just telling somebody do a neti can lead to some issues. So let me break this down a little bit. First, you want to ask your doctor if this is right for you. I have an allergist, and my allergist actually has me doing the prescription is 2 Neti Pots every morning and evening. I don't always get quite that many in. I try to do one a day when am in allergy season. So as far as how often you should do it, how much you should do it, you should talk to your doctor, your allergist, and decide on those things with them. And if you have any specific conditions, you need to make sure of that. But then we also want to choose the right pot or bottle. So we know that on the left, this is what typically a Neti Pot looks like. But more research has been showing that when we use that sort of Neti Pot that turns your head to the side, it can cause ear issues. It can trap the water and deepen the sinuses. So medical doctors are tending to recommend this. So it's basically a modern adaptation, that squeeze bottle, to make it so it goes straight up and you do not have to tilt your head. With all that, you have to read and follow all the directions in the box if you do the Neti Pot. But I like to emphasize to my students these things. Use the right water. I actually dated a guy that he was doing Neti Pot and he would just take it in the shower and put the hot water in the shower. No, you cannot use tap water. Your mouth, when you drink your tap water, when it goes into your stomach, it has the capacity to break down amoeba and bacteria with your stomach acid. With the nose, it's much more sensitive. So distilled water, bottled water, or boiled water for 5 minutes or more and then cooled down. Very important. As well as only using the salts that come with it. I know I've heard some yogis be like, well, you can put essential oils in it. Don't put anything else in it unless your doctor knows, unless they are recommending it. I also mentioned to keep the head upright. And with these, you replace them every 3 months, which I also really like, so that I can make sure that it's sanitary. So the Neti Pot has been something really helpful to me during this time because I have allergies and I can breathe so much better. I bet there's going to be questions on this because it's a big topic. I think that safety is the top thing, and people definitely knowing that they should reach out to their healthcare provider, especially if they're not sure if this is right for them, are key points. And I'm actually going to make a video on how to safely do a Neti Pot soon. So if you do sign up for the resources at AnnSwansonWellness.com/immunity, then I will send you that video as soon as it's available, as well as a handout. Number 6 is to seek social support. This is so important. We are social creatures. We are herd animals as humans, and this is a tough time to be separated. We're not going to as many group family functions. A lot of the group things that we would normally do are being canceled. So we have to find creative ways to do this. Calling my grandfather more often and checking in and seeing how he's doing, calling a friend, finding ways to connect with others and feel more connected yourself. This is important. And it's more of a challenge during a time like this. So it's something we need to keep in mind, that may be one of those extra loads on our system, is a lack of type of social support that we normally have. And even when we go to a yoga class, we're in a group setting and we're moving with people, there's this sense of joint connection, of doing this together, that it's hard for us to mimic right now. So we have to take the extra steps to find these true connections with people. And with that said, I'd actually like to see the people that are live, if I can connect with them by letting Joe, let me know any of the questions that you think would be relevant right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Ann. This is such great information relevant to this time. Really appreciate you bringing this knowledge here. It's interestingly enough, there's been fewer questions this time, and I think that's attributed a lot to just how informative you are and your presentation was. So that's great. There is a question I see here. Interestingly enough, earlier on there was a question from Stacey Jacobson asking what number 4 was again, and we had several respondents who were engaged watching who answered the question 4. So thank thank you, Kelly. Thank you, David. Thank you, and Robin, for all answering Stacy's question about what number 4 was, which of course it was to follow mindfully follow health guidelines. I do have a specific question from Valerie Cantor, who wrote, after running, like if you need to catch your breath and maybe panting, is it better to close the mouth at that point and breathe through the nose instead?
Yeah. So really, we're all supposed to breathe through our mouth. You don't ever see like other animals out in the wild breathing through their mouth, except for a dog. I know you're all thinking it, but they have a different cooling system. So the nose is for breathing. However, I've taken up trail running during the pandemic, as many people have, and one way to get out in nature. And I know it's hard. So it's a backup system. Your mouth is a backup system. So when you absolutely need to, breathe through your mouth, but understand that it's not filtering the air and it's not as efficient. I know it feels like you need to breathe through your mouth, but if possible, try to breathe through your nose as much as possible. So the next step for that when I'm running is I will, like if I really need the mouth, I'll inhale through the nose and out through the mouth when needed, or when I guess you're really taxing your system. But I'm trying to breathe through my nose the majority of the time for all of those reasons. As far as other exercises, I'm not as much of an expert. Like I said, I just took up trail running, but for yoga practice and our asana practice, in and out through the nose.
Perfect. A couple more questions have come in. April Jackson wrote, how does social support improve immunity?
Yeah, so it actually, and this goes to the question we had earlier about serotonin. I mean, when we have social support, we are releasing endorphins and feel-good hormones. We're releasing oxytocin and these chemicals that help us stay balanced. So that's a big part of it, is balancing our neurochemistry. As well as managing stress. So, you just feel better when you've connected with somebody compared to if you're alone all the time. And reminding yourself that you're not alone, even when you are, can be also really helpful for that. Reaching out and giving to other people has been shown to help us manage stress, to boost our immunity, to improve our overall well-being. So if you can help people in some way, that's another great way to implement the social support, is do it in that direction.
Boy, I can vouch for that too. I'll tell you, even not being able to go to work and interact with my coworkers, I feel like has added a bunch of stress. And so getting that opportunity to somehow connect with them, even sometimes via Zoom calls, or we'll do these get-togethers, I can tell you clearly it definitely has helped, and certainly has helped to alleviate some of the stress in my life. Tyria Torres also wrote, and by the way, Tyria, I do want to mention, I know that your very first question that you put out there asking about general tips on flexibility, I feel we could do an entire probably webinar based on that. And I believe we are actually writing some content for that. So I just wanted to let you know, we certainly weren't skipping over that question, but know you can find some information not only on beYogi, but even on Ensure Fitness Group, which is one of our other brands specific to that question. And of course, I certainly want to mention, doing yoga is probably one of the better things that I've done to help increase my flexibility. Well, before I go into Kateria's next question, maybe I will throw that to you. Do you have any very basic tips on just increasing flexibility for somebody who has challenges in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said, just the general practice of yoga can be helpful. That it just depends, where are you tight? I can't just give you like one pose, but a lot of us tend to be tight on the whole back side of our body. So doing stretches for the back side of your body, which yoga tends to do, as well as a lot of us tend to be tight right here from this sort of action. So doing things that help us to open our shoulders can be really helpful, which I feel like a dynamic, well-rounded yoga practice is going to include all of these things. It's going to include some back bends, forward bends, twists, side bends.
Yeah, and Kateria, you're not alone. 40 years, I did not do a good job, and within the last couple of years, really focused on it and have seen dramatic improvements, through yoga practice and a better understanding of flexibility in general. But Kateria also asked, what did you study? How can I complement my science career, which is nursing and biology, with yoga?
Yeah. So where did I study?
The question was, what did you study?
What did I study? Okay. So it's funny because I actually studied art undergrad. I think I mentioned that I have this appreciation for art. I studied film and drawing and those sort of things. But then when I went to India, I became very interested in the human body, as my teacher, Yogi Shivadas, is very good at explaining the physiology and what's going on. And I was like, I need to know more. So when I came back from India to the US, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into something in the medical field. So very much like you, I took all the classes like pre-nursing, pre-med, right? I took anatomy, physiology, chemistry, biomechanics, some extra classes, psychology, all of these things to really understand and go into something in the medical field. Ultimately, I decided not to go into the medical field because really the whole reason was to be a better yoga teacher. And I saw this program for yoga therapy pop up, the Masters of Science in Yoga Therapy, and it's at Maryland University of Integrative Health. That's where I did my yoga therapy certification, which is an accredited school through the International Association of Yoga Therapists. And there's a lot of schools that are like that, but this was at the time, and I still believe it is, the only master's degree. So that's what I did. Now with you with a healthcare background, you could go into yoga therapy if you wanted, because they complement each other really well. As well as I'm developing a course right now that's coming out very soon on the book Science of Yoga that takes you through the book and focuses on the key research that you need to know to understand how yoga affects all the systems of the body, which I feel like a lot of people focus on yoga anatomy, and we're focused on muscles and bones and asana and like flexibility and strength of these muscles, which obviously the book covers that in some places for sure, but yoga is that 8 limbs, and it affects all of our systems. As we just saw, it affects our nervous system, it affects our immunity, our lymphatic flow, our blood pressure, all of the systems. So I'll be doing that course. If you put your email in at annswansonwellness.com/immunity, you can learn more about that from my email list too.
Perfect.
If anybody has any questions for me that's further beyond this, feel free to also reach out to me. The quickest ways are on Instagram. I respond really quickly. So my Instagrams are at scienceof.yoga or at Ann Swanson Wellness. I respond very quickly on Instagram DM. So that would be a really quick way, as well as I have a YouTube channel. I respond to all comments on there, and I have some videos related to these topics. I think I see some thank yous. I kind of want to look at these.
A lot of thank yous have come in. One of the things I love is Lou Weisberg wrote, "I totally want a disco ball hanging from my office ceiling too. Jealous." And then, I think, I wanted to point out that Lisa Madden also wrote that they've been using your book in their yoga teacher training program, their YTT, and their students love it. So easy to understand. And she gave a thank you as well.
Awesome. If anybody uses my book and they have any questions, if you use it for teacher training, you have any questions, same thing. I'm happy to support you. Feel free to message me on Instagram and YouTube are the top ways. I do answer email. I'm just not as consistent on it. So that's why I said those two.
I know we've really run out of time here. So we can, any of the questions that have come in after that, we'll certainly review and send over to Ann to see if we can direct answers here. But Ann, I really want to say thank you so much. And clearly that you can see the audience is also, compliment, adding thank yous in as well. But this has been a phenomenal hour. I know I've learned a lot. I'm hoping that the community did as well, but really appreciate your time, your knowledge, you sharing your time and knowledge with us in the beYogi community.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Joe, for having me. Thanks everybody for being here. I hope that we connect more. Get on that email list. Feel free to message me. I'm here for you. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. And please keep the questions coming. Any questions that come post-webinar, feel free to send to us, and we'll get them answered and send as a post-webinar communication. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.